And in the buzz now at 9, is it possible to overhype a hurricane? A lot of people are asking that question, despite the fact that Hurricane Irene caused the death of at least 20 people and did billions of dollars in damage. Some are saying forecasters and the news media blew the storm completely out of proportion. Now at 9, what do you think about the criticism? Is it fair?
You know, there was a saying, and I've heard it for many, many years, one of the most predictable things about our weather is its unpredictability. And it's really difficult when you're in a situation like this, when you're dealing with a Category 3 storm, or 2 storm at one time, to say, you know what, just lay back on your laurels and let's just hope it doesn't come through. You've got to prepare people, and I don't think you can ever overhype any hurricane after everything that happened with Katrina. I think they did exactly what they had to do.
Yeah, well, because of this, I think people were prepared this time. What's the bad in that?
There's also the big question, though. Was it played up because it was heading toward New York City?
Yeah.
And not, you know, Louisiana, for example. I mean, that's the argument here. I'm not playing devil's advocate. I'm just kind of throwing that out there. What I will say is that we in the business often have these discussions. Are we doing too much with this? You know, is this being overhyped? And in this case, I mean, it was potentially going to be a Category 3 at one point.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's what the models had it as at a Cat 3. Now, it was never able to recover and gain that much strength, and then once it hit the Outer Banks, it really just lost a lot of its momentum. So again, it didn't end up being as bad as some of the forecast models had predicted, but you got to prepare for the worst, and you got to prepare for what these models are saying, because, you know, it could happen. It could have been much, much worse, and I think you just have to thank your lucky stars that it wasn't that bad instead of complaining that you were over-prepared.
But I think what Kirk says does add a little bit of relevance. It was New York. They're not used to hurricanes. I mean, we're talking about flooding out subways. We're talking about, you know, being underwater. If it was Florida, you probably wouldn't have seen as much because Floridians are kind of used to this.
It's a 100-year
But it was
storm
New York, exactly, which made it that much more interesting and of course, scary perhaps for a lot of folks. Danette Carey on Facebook writes, people died, damage was done, and power was lost. I'm sure to the people involved, it wouldn't be so quick to say it was overhyped.
Gary Gray wrote on Facebook, not at all overhyped. It cost billions in damages. We should all be thankful that it wasn't our house underwater.
James J. Chris Harvey says way overhyped. It was a Category 1. I mean, come on.
Christina Guzman says, better to be safe than sorry.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Go ahead, Susan.
Yeah, Christina, well, that's exactly what you just read. Pamela Odom says, not at all. We need these emergency weather warnings. They save lives.
Well, SimCity on Twitter says, many are saying yes, but I wonder what the families affected would say.
Yeah, Lori Dickman says, it doesn't matter if it was overhyped or not. The areas really affected by Irene were not ones who are normally used to hurricanes. If the warnings had been more minimal, all hell would have broken loose because they were underhyped.
Robin Backus says, mayors and governors took appropriate action. We heard all along, prepare for the worst, hope for the best. What if the hurricane was worse and they did little to protect citizens? I commend them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stacy on Twitter says, I don't think so. Caution is always a safe bet. With storms like Irene, they're unpredictable, and the damage can cause damage.
That's right. Today, the 6th-year anniversary of Hurricane Katrina, and you can ask anybody in New Orleans if they felt it was underhyped or overhyped, and I guarantee you they will all say, the more notice, the better to get out of harm's way.
Yeah, and if you think you've heard the last of it, you haven't, because the flooding's going to continue for the next few days, so you're going to hear a lot of reports of coming out of the Northeast of people in the floodwaters and that they're dealing with in their homes and their businesses. It's still going on.